And we are live. That's nice. With a little bit of a delay, I can see. That's nice. That's nice. So, yeah, let me just go to my main feed because I'm relaying this through my normal channel. I thought, why the fuck not put it out on the good old YouTubes? Um, so, yeah, that's what we're doing right now. So, yeah. Why not see if we can get some additional viewers for my new channel? Thank you so much for showing up. So today we are going to be talking about funnels, pipelines, and value ladders, right? So how are they interconnected? How do they work and function holistically, synergistically in your marketing ecosystem? How do they relate to each other, and what's the key differences? Let's look into the definitions, because if you have a clear picture of what things are, you have a better option of controlling them. And so very important to know these things and have a in-depth understanding of them, because when you do, that means that you can accurately diagnose throughout your marketing ecosystem and find the points where you can either optimize or increase volume or whatever it is you need to do to get more sales, more value in the other end, right? And it's very important to look on all of these three things as being interconnected. Now let me just turn on my camera here, because of course I'm going to do a little side video here, and yeah, just so you know, yeah, you're all on camera, right? Okay. don't freak out, man. I'm gonna blur you out later. Don't freak out. This is just, it's not live, okay? So don't freak out because yeah, of course. Yeah. No. It's just for a video later, right? I'm not gonna expose you guys in any way, shape, or form. Don't worry about it. It's not gonna happen. This is just I'm gonna blur you, so don't worry about it, right? You will not be associated with a former piece of shit criminal like me. Don't worry about it. Former is the key word here, right? And everybody deserves a second chance in life. So yeah. So let's see if people have shown up. Yes. Should we give it a couple of minutes more? Yes. Yeah. So did you see the new Mike Tyson video, by the way? Yeah. Really performed well. Really nice. So the difference between core content, right, which is business, and then or pillar content, and then feeder content, right? Sometimes it's nice to put some shit out there that really increases your reach and your exposure. Then you can do the other stuff, and it's going to be displayed more. Anyways, let's just dive into it, man. Yeah. No, they can't hear you either. So so don't worry about it, man. No voice. That's why I have the earpiece, right? So I can hear you, but the viewers can't, right? So they will just basically be hearing me giving a presentation. Yes. Yes, there will be a Q&A session later. Thank you so much for showing up on my private channel. As I said, I'm just relaying this to YouTube because why the fuck not? Might be someone out there in YouTube land and will benefit from this. So let's get into it. Let's get into it right about now. Okay. So, yeah. So you having a clear understanding of funnels, pipelines, and value ladders and how they relate to each other in sales and marketing is going to be key towards your success, right? Because once you have a clearly defined concept, and you know how to use it, know how to accurately assess it, apply accurate thinking to it, it takes away the guesswork, right? Because if you have a clearly defined concept, that means that you can start to put math and numbers to it, right? Measure those KPIs, right? that becomes more and more important as you scale your business. Maybe not in the startup phase. As a matter of fact, I just work with someone where we try to accurately diagnose the numbers, but he's really in the startup phase just like you were at that time. But he's also in that startup phase right now, where we're building out his monetization. And that phase, you really just grind through it, right? It's more like, are we moving in the right direction? But once you're up and running and there are coming money in, right? Money is flowing through, then you need to kind of clearly define the numbers throughout these 3 key stages of your funnel, your pipeline, and your value ladder, right? So you can accurately measure them and optimize them. So let's look a little bit into the definition of them. I have a presentation written out. So let's look into it, right? So a funnel, right? A funnel represents you can say the customer journey from when they go from awareness all the way to the stage of conversion, right? So a funnel clearly visualizes how your lead or prospect, it kind of moves through these different stages, and it narrows down into a stage where they convert, right? And there's actually a conversion at each stage. There's a touch point. The way I look at a funnel is you drive traffic. That could be both qualified people, qualified buyers, or non-qualified buyers. It could be a variety of different traffic because you never really know. But you fill up your funnel, and then they basically go through stages of qualification towards some type of conversion, like key conversion, where you basically get them on a list, right? And that's why we love to use lead magnets. That's why we love to give out free value, to get people on that list where we can communicate with them. Oh, fuck me, my camera just fucked up, man. Let me just fix that shit. There. So, yeah. And so the thing is, So the thing is, you really want to know, sorry for that, you really want to know those stages right through your funnel, and you want to get them to that point where they basically convert onto a list, right? That's the key aspect of your funnel, is to get them on a list. And then traditionally we look at marketing, right? We look at it as if at the end of the funnel, they convert into a buyer. That's not how I view it, right? I view it as they go from awareness to interest towards you, whatever it is that you sell, or it could be a personal brand, it could be what you represent, your values, it could also be affinity, it could be know, like, and trust factor. All of these things are part of your funnel, that you basically a process you take your prospect or your audience through, and then they convert onto a list. Like, they go from awareness to interest to decision and make an action. And that action could be subtle sometimes, right? They follow your channel, or they keep watching your videos or your content. They might be commenting. They do different types of engagement. But at the end, at some point, they're going to convert, right? And I don't view it as a conversion towards a customer. I view it as towards converting onto a list. That action they take is that they somehow give you their information so you can communicate with them on an ongoing basis, right? Which is the most important thing, because if you have them on some type of list, right? Because when you put content out on the different channels, it's very, very valuable. But basically, you can't control how the algorithm exposes you to your audience, right? But if you have them on the list that you control, that means that you can communicate with them freely, and the money is in your communication with your list and how much you are able to follow up with them, right? The money is in the follow-up. We all know that saying. But also the amount of offers you can put in front of them, and how you can accurately assess their behavior, right? Because you basically segment and target people into different groups, and you can base that off their behavior, right? What do they click on? What do they engage with throughout the communication with you? You can measure it through how they interact with your emails. You can measure it how they interact with your videos. If you have a video sales letter or some type of funnel, you can accurately assess that, right? Even on your website, you can do heat map tracking, right? So you can see what it is they look on, scroll, not individually, but as a mass, right? But basically, I view it, the key conversion point is that they get on a list where you can communicate with them, right? That means they go from being a prospect or a part of your audience into a actual lead that can convert into a customer. So that's how I view the funnel, right? They go from awareness into a decision. The action they take is to get on your list where you can communicate with them. And your purpose with the funnel is to basically guide and convert leads into customers, right? When they get into a pipeline, right? And you want to nurture them throughout your funnel, throughout your content, to get them on that list so you can communicate with them. And from my point of view, once they're on your list, they're basically on a pipeline, right? Because a funnel also means that unqualified prospects or audience will never convert onto your list. Some will fall off. Some will basically convert at later stages. So you communicate with them, not freely, but you're dependent upon them coming to you in your funnel through your advertisement, through your reach. Now in B2B, it's a little bit different because you can say the way you engage with people is you reach out to them, right? Which is why it's more like a pipeline. You reach out to them, you put them on a list. They can of course opt out, but basically if you do outbound, they're more or less already in your pipeline because you're reaching out to them. But the key conversion point is when they accept that they're on your list and that you communicate with them and they engage with that communication and they show interest, right? And that means you can start to teach, train, and educate them on the value of your offer and your services, and nurture them. Basically get these touch points with your customer, eventually putting them over the fence, convert into a buyer, right? And so basically the pipeline, right, is a structured representation of a sales process, right? And it's basically each and every step for a lead. So from lead generation to closure, right? And it's how you manage those opportunities in your pipeline that is the key point in a pipeline. And so throughout the pipeline, there's key stages, right? Where you qualify the lead, right? You give them a proposal, you have some sort of negotiation, and you have a close, right? And so this is it's a little bit different, right? Because if you have a funnel, if you're doing traditional marketing where people come to you inbound, right, and you have basically a page where people click and buy, basically your copywriting does the lead qualification for you, right? And your funnel and your pages throughout your funnel pages, right, through your website or whatever sales process you have, is basically you screen the bad customers away, right? You should have some type of screening process where you say this is for this type of people. These are the people we help. And your copywriting on those pages through your email is basically your proposal, right? And they are in with themselves. Then there could be like customer interaction, which represents negotiation, and the close is where they buy, right? If we do traditional outbound, it's more cut and stone, right? We qualify a lead. We do that by ourselves before we reach out to them. So if a lead is qualified, we reach out to them. Then we have the second qualification, usually on a call, right, where we screen to see, are they able to buy? Are they at the right stage? Can we actually help them and provide value? Are they fit to be our customers? Will they be problematic to us at later stages? Also very important, because you not just want to have customers, you want to have the right type of customers, right? And we give them a proposal based on basically the product service we sell to them, or sometimes it's more tailor-made into their needs. There's some sort of negotiation, right? either with us if there's deliverables at play, and then we close them, right? And so the purpose for the pipeline is to track the status of sales opportunities and to make sure that we have consistent follow-up, right? Throughout those stages. And if we view like inbound marketing through a funnel as them converting onto a list, it's the same thing in the pipeline. So there's an overlap there, right? And then the value ladder is basically where the progression of the offers that we provide for our customers, right? And usually it starts with a low cost or free option. Then it's gradually leading to higher and higher offers, more and more buy-in. We solve more problems for them or solve more valuable problems or in a more luxury way, right? Faster, easier, done for you services, done with you, it depends. And then we ascend them up that value ladder, right? And so a value ladder is a key component for any business, right? And the purpose from like the key stages of a value ladder is usually we have some sort of free offer, right? That could be the lead magnet, right, at the bottom, but it could also be service based. Then we have entry level offer, a core offer, upsell, and a high ticket offer, and they will jump. Some of them will jump to the top of the stage, right? And key component or key thing to notice when you have a value ladder is the rule of 80-20, which basically is predominant throughout all of these stages, right? So throughout your funnel, your pipeline or your pipeline and your value ladder, you can accurately assess that from each stages, basically from the total amount, you're going to be very lucky if 20% converge throughout these stages and ascends up your value ladder. Now that might change a little bit depending on the funnel you have or the pipeline. A 20% conversion rate is really good, right? At each stages. So that's how from a baseline, that's how I view it. If we have a 20% conversion rate throughout all stages, then you are really well off, right? Meaning that it's qualified traffic, people that will actually become one of your buyers, right? And so when you have a value ladder, like a very easy way to make a lot more money if you have a value ladder that's incomplete is to simply make like the best possible version of what it is you have to provide, the highest level of service, and then just put it in there, right? And it might be once in a blue moon that someone buys, but they will buy it. There will be some customers. There will actually be some customers that don't want to ascend up your value ladder. They just want to jump to your highest ticket offer and buy that to get the highest service. They don't necessarily want to go with a done with you service or a course, or they want to have something where it's done for them, right? At the highest level. It might also be you teaching and training them and educating them, for instance, sales or some shit like that, up and in person, like in one-to-one setting, right? And so put that in there because it will increase your average value of your customer, right? Your lifetime value will increase, and like if you're running like typical funnel diagnostics, your average cart value will greatly increase if you have that top tier of an offer, right? So the purpose of a value ladder is to kind of like maximize both lifetime value, right? Because you have something that speaks to each segment of your audience, but also to like give different types of people different types of opportunity to either ascend, so you keep solving more and more problems, giving them more service, or they can jump to the stage that is appropriately for them. So there's a large overlap, right? So if we are going to look into like the differences between things, right? Basically, the focus of a funnel is basically customer journey and lead conversion, right? The touch points that you have with them when you interact with them. The pipeline, it's more in terms of sales process management, and the value ladder is maximizing customer lifetime value. Now, the structure from a funnel is a narrowing journey, right? From awareness to conversion, right? A pipeline is more like a linear process, right? Where there's blocks or objections that you need to overcome. It's a linear series of stages for what we usually call opportunities. And a value ladder is actually more of a hierarchy of progression of offers, right? So the higher you ascend the value ladder, the more your offer progresses. Now, your audience in a funnel is broad, right? They're all potential leads that you funnel through, right? To sift through them and find the right prospect or the right lead for you that you can convert. In the pipeline, it's very specific, right? Because we have qualified our sales opportunities, right? And we screen off those who doesn't benefit us or who we can't help. That's why there's a little bit of difference there. Where you can say in a funnel they screen off themselves if you have kind of like repelling copywriting, right? That repels those who are not fit for your offer, right? And then in the value ladder, it's more or less existing customers, or it is existing customers, and you are focusing on retention and ascension of that ladder. The metric for a funnel is basically your conversion rate per stage where you funnel through. So how many progress down that funnel and eventually convert onto a list. And the pipeline is the opportunity that progresses and your close rate eventually, right? And in your value ladder, it's the lifetime value of a customer. How much can we expect our average customer to spend on us? In terms also in relation to different segments of those customers, and what is our upsell success rate. So there's a conversion rate throughout all of these different things, right? Through the funnel, through the pipeline, through the value ladder. And so in each of these three components, right? Your funnel, your pipeline, your value ladder, there will be key points that people need to progress through, and it's your conversion rate that optimally or in the end determines how much money you're going to make through that whole journey, right? The time frame from a funnel is short to medium term, right? Because either they convert onto your list or not. The pipeline can be medium to long term, right? We're talking about sales cycle here, right? A very key metric to focus on is either a 60 or a 90-day sales cycle, right? Because at that stage, people usually have either converted into a buyer or not from your lowest tier offer or whatever they choose to engage with. You might have a longer sales cycle, but regardless of that, like a 60 to 90-day measurement is key because it determines how much ad spend you can float to acquire new customers. And also a key metric to be very much aware of is from the stage you convert people onto a list, because you will have some type of spend to acquire, the cost to acquire a customer, right? At what point do you break even? And the rest of the back end is profit, right? It's very important because that can determine how much ad spend you can do. And ad spend is eventually, like in terms of both media and regular ads or whatever you choose to spend your money on to acquire a customer, is eventually going to determine how much you can scale. And here's a key point is that's why when we optimize for a higher conversion rate, basically means that we are not leaking the lead flow that we are getting in, right? So yeah, there's similarities throughout this process that we need to be aware of. Now, the value ladder can be a long-term customer relationship, right? That's the key focus, right? We want to send as many people as possible up through that value ladder. That also means that we have to have very clear structured offers where we focus on solving some type of problem for them so they can just extend to the next level and we can solve the next problem for them. It's basically what we do from like that overarching high level perspective. Just get some drink, which is of key importance to kind of understand both time frames, the different stages through your funnel, through your pipeline, through your value ladder, and kind of accurately being able to measure and track those data points, the drop-off points, the churn rate, the conversion rate, and also the time frame, the velocity with which they move through these different stages. So there are similarities, which means that they are stage-based progressions, which means that your future customer or your now customer or your lead that you are in negotiation with, that you are trying to move through the pipeline, it all involves like distinct stages that guides that interaction, right? And it's also very important when once we start to look into how to optimize and decrease complexity in your system, basically your funnel, your pipeline, your value ladder, that we know these different stages, right? These distinct stages. We know what moves a customer or a lead through a stage to the next level. We know the time frame. We know the number that move through our conversion rate. We also know who we need to screen through, how we need to target and segment them to get them as smoothly flowing through this process as possible. So they are, all of them are goal oriented also. That's something they have in common, right? They all aim to improve conversion through these different choke points or bottlenecks. The theory of constraint would basically states that throughout this whole process, you will be constrained somewhere along this process, and there will usually be like a couple of main constraints that you can fix to get more throughput from one end to the other, and that becomes the point where we'll look into like sales efficiency and customer value and conversion rates and stuff like that. And all of it needs to be data driven. You need to track and measure everything. Because if you do not track and measure things, you don't know what's working or not working. You need to split test also, right? Different options. And so you can diagnose and optimize performance, right? So you need to accurately track and measure and segment different types of customer through this whole process of a funnel, a pipeline, and a value ladder. Now, key point here, takeaway point here is that if you look at your, basically every type of business solves a problem for someone in some type of way or provides some type of value for a customer, right? And your marketing ecosystem pulls them toward that value and that service you can deliver to them. And your job through that whole sales process is to basically educate them, give them proof, and then deliver in your fulfillment process, right? And then send them up the value ladder. Now, when you have this marketing ecosystem, right, if you view it as your sphere of influence, right, getting people from one end to the other, right, you can optimize for conversion in all these stages, right? And you can optimize the shit out of things, right? Which will give you more money in the back end. But there is a process of diminishing return, right? This is one of the key points where you need to be aware that this amount of effort or resources or cost can optimize your conversion rate in this degree. And this you need to accurately be able to measure how much money or how much profit comes out in the other end. Not only like top line revenue, but also lifetime customer value, right? How much will they send up your value ladder? But this is basically your marketing ecosystem, right? At the top of that funnel, at the entry point to that funnel, right? Basically, you want to optimize for increasing throughput at the beginning and then to the end, right? Because basically, at each of these stages, the further along those stages you come and optimize for, because remember, there's drop-off points, there's churn at every single stage throughout your funnel, your pipeline, and your value ladder. So if you optimize for conversion, optimizing for your conversion rate in the value ladder, it's less, right? There's a less amount, the number of potential individual conversions that you can optimize for is less, right? There's less people at the back end than there is at the front end. But if you increase your acquisition, right, at the top of the funnel, that number will trickle down throughout that stage, right? So a lot of the times, if you really want to scale and grow, you need to increase top of funnel and then optimize throughout the process, right? That's why a lot of times when I work with people, first and foremost, we set systems and processes in place that generates more leads, right? At the top of the funnel, more qualified potential buyers that you can send up your value ladder. That's the easiest way. Just increase um, that critical mass of potential buyers, potential customers at the top of the funnel, right? And then we increase conversion throughout all these stages, right? There's different points where basically there's key points, right? So there's top of funnel where you push in traffic or audience, whatever it is, and try to convert them on the list. That's the one point, right? Whoever becomes aware of you, right? Instead, there's the teaching, the training, the educating of your audience or your prospects at the top of the funnel, throughout that funnel until they convert onto a list, right? So those are the touch points. At the bottom of that funnel, you have the main core conversion point, which is they take an action so they get onto your list. So that's a key point, right? Do your lead magnet, do your value, do whatever it is you offer your potential customer for free, right? So it becomes a relationship where there's reciprocity. Is it good enough? Does it actually solve a problem for them, right? Do they want to give you their contact information so you can become in contact at your terms, right? You can reach out to them whatever you want when they're on your list, right? You basically open up the communication channels, and it needs to be valuable. You can't just bait and switch. You can't just get people on the list because basically, if you convert them onto a list and you don't deliver at that conversion point, then you set the tone um, throughout the rest of this process. So, key point is get more people in at the top of the funnel, have multiple touch points where you basically interact with your customer, you get connection, you educate them so they can see the value in what it is you offer. And then at that key conversion point where they get on your list, right? Where you provide some value in advance, results in advance, or a lead magnet so they get onto your list, that needs to be really, really good, right? And there also needs to be a activation point, because if in whatever it is you give people for free, right? If you're doing lead gen or whatever, if you're actually solving a problem, getting them customers in through the door, so it amounts to money if you're doing B2B, that's very important because that's an activation point that makes the throughput through your pipeline, them converting to an actual buyer, closing them much, much easier. Alternatively, if you're doing B2C, your lead magnet where you convert people onto your list, if it's actually good and there is some type of conversion point, um, not like activation point, where they actually you solve a problem for them, an actual problem, then they will want more of what it is you have. So that key conversion point where they get onto your list, there needs to be an activation point, and you need to over deliver on value, right? Because it pre-frames the rest of the communication you have with your audience, right? So that's a key point. And then you need to get them on a call, or you need to get them to buy, right? If the sales process, um, like with interaction with someone, it usually is if it's a higher price point, right? That's different. We don't need to go into price points. We all know at what price points, right? That you need to get people on a phone or on a meet to convert them into or close them into a buyer, right? And so those are the key critical stages where you basically get them on a call, right? Those are like little stages that you need to get them through to actually show up for the call where you close them. Then there's the actual sale, right? Where you interact with people. You screen off the bad buyers that you don't want to interact with, and you keep um, the good prospects, the good buyers, those you want to work with that can provide you the most value. And this is key for your future marketing efforts, because those are the good testimonials that you actually want to share with people to get, again, the right type of qualified buyers into that whole process, right? So the actual point of sale where you interact with your customer or future customer and close them is another key point, right? Then directly after the sale, you need to have another activation point where you basically take on the responsibility for yourself to get them some sort of result, basically them acknowledging that you have provided value for them and pushed them through whatever product or service it is that you provide them, so they get actual value from it, because that determines whether they ascend up your value ladder to the next stage, right? If we have like a linear progression and they don't jump to the top of your value ladder and buy or whatever premium price product, right? And then throughout the value ladder, basically each step of the value ladder represents another key conversion point, right? And the key thing here is people are not going to ascend up your value ladder if it's linearly progressive to the next stage if you didn't provide them enough value at the previous. It doesn't mean necessarily that you completely solve the problem for them, because some people needs, like typically do-it-yourself service is lower priced, right? And for some people it won't be enough, and so they need something where it's done with you or done for them, and so they will ascend if they can't solve the problem for themselves. Other people, like if you are in some sort of business where you generate revenue for people, right? Could also be lead generation where you do consulting, right? So you sell lead generation as your intro offer to get the foot in the door and provide value. And like I do, then you do consulting on the back end, right? So if the lead generation process fails and you don't get them enough leads, then they're not going to buy your consulting for optimizing that whole process, right? So you need to deliver, right? And if you deliver and scale them, then they might have the resources to buy your consulting, right? That's why if you can merge lead generation with consulting, it's very powerful, right? Because basically you increase the throughput, top of funnel, you get a lot of new leads in, a lot of traffic that converts. And then afterwards you say, listen, let's optimize this whole process so you get more out in the back end. And that's a full stack service, right? It's very powerful if you connect lead generation with consulting, where you optimize their whole sales process. But basically at the bottom of everything, it's a sales process, right? The sales process is basically putting people on, grabbing people's attention, getting them on a list and communicating with them consistently, giving them offers that they convert into, right? And then sending them up the value ladder. So that's the key structure of everything. So at each stage of that conversion process up your value ladder, you need to have activation points where you provide value, right? And then you need to have like an ongoing process of solving a problem for them. And that's where the communication becomes so very important, right? That you provide value and ongoing communication so they trust you, right? And you become the guy that they go to solve their problem. And then you will have lifetime value of customers where they seek you out to solve your problem, right? So that's basically the key points for all this process. Now let's look into some of the like misconceptions that there are regarding basically a funnel, a pipeline, and a value ladder, right? So a lot of people think that the wider the top of the funnel, the better it is, right? The more traffic you get in at the end. That's actually not the case. You want it to have quality traffic, quality leads, and that matters actually more than like massive volume. Good example for this is like if I have 10 million cat people, right? An audience of 10 million cat people, but I sell dog food, right? Doesn't really matter the volume because they're completely unqualified. And so in terms of your audience and the traffic you generate, right, in terms of qualification, the first qualification is actually not whether or not they need your service right now. It's basically if you engage with them. And that is a quality in and of itself. Do you engage with your audience, with your traffic, with the people that come to you, right? Do you educate them? Because a lot of the time, it's not only your offer, the value you provide, it's not only whether or not they could use it, but it's also, is it at the right time for them to buy, right? And so when you engage with your audience or your future customers, they will remember you at the stage where they do need your service, right? So that's one key misconception, right? That volume is everything in the funnel. Another one is that there's one size fits all, right? That you can basically just have a funnel, then that's money in the bank, right? and that's that you can have like one specific type of funnel that basically is like the universal funnel that you can use for everything. That's not true. Um, your funnel needs to be tailored around or made like customized around your audience needs, right? And it require ongoing optimization of that funnel. You need to split test. You need to be aware of the numbers. You need to be aware of at what price point, what types of funnel converts the best, right? A lead funnel, a self-liquidating funnel, usually linked to ad spend, different types of one-time upsells, different types of high-ticket offers. Do you need like a launch funnel? Do you need like a two-step lead funnel? Do you need a webinar funnel? Do your particular audience convert best, right? Because basically funnels are conversion mechanisms, right? Just like YouTube is. So we can view a funnel as a conversion mechanism, right? Both for buyers, but also just for getting people on a lead. And all of that needs to be optimized, right? It's quality of customer that you can move through your pipeline, the different stages until they ascend your value ladder, right? There are different types of funnels for your value ladder also. And then let's look into the pipelines, right? Every lead in the pipeline will close, right? That's a complete myth. Most opportunities in your pipeline, most leads is completely unqualified, and they will drop off, right? So being realistic about how many people you close is key. And that depends again upon the quality of the lead you have, right, in your sales process. Another misconception is that pipelines and funnels and ladders is like for big businesses. No, they're evergreen concepts and everyone needs to be aware of them, because if you're aware of them, you know their definition, you know how they work at each stage. That means you can control it and you can regulate each of the stages and you can track the numbers and you can optimize, right? And then like that you only need to track steps through the pipeline, right? That's actually not true. Like the steps of conversion, a pipeline is also very much about accountability, right? Do you do follow-up? Do you accurately assess your customers' needs? Do you try to customize? Do you meet them where they are? Are you attentive to their needs, right? Do you actually solve a problem for them? It's very important. So it's not just about tracking stages and numbers. It's also about accountability for you as a business owner, right? That you track these stages, because basically that's the customer experience, right? Nurture, right? And then there's the value ladder misconceptions, that a value ladder is just basically upselling people. That's actually not right, because your main focus in business is to deliver value to people, right? So a value ladder is not just about upselling. It's about you being able to deliver value to your customer, right? It's not just about price escalation. It's about value escalation. How much can you give your customer, right? And another misconception is that all customers will ascend your value ladder. That's simply not true. Many customers, however well you nurture them or give them results or help them out at the different stages, will simply not move past the lower levels of your value ladder. And that's perfectly normal. Like if you can optimize for an 80-20 percentage split throughout those steps, it's very good, right? And also like in terms of your value ladder, sending people up, that like low ticket offers are like a waste of time. Why not just go for high ticket offers? I think you should start with high ticket offers or core offers and then build out all of the steps, because a low ticket offer, right, where you provide a lot of value to people, can basically build a trust where they say, we are willing to invest in this, right? So you need to build out your value ladder. And from the point of view, from you as a business owner, at every given point, it's like 3% that will buy something, from your value ladder of the total traffic or total potential customer base that you have. And those 3% are actually split up through your value ladder stages, basically, if you track the numbers. So if you can monetize not only 1%, but 2 or 3%, right? It makes a huge difference, because if you can monetize people that are not at the stage where they can afford your high ticket offer, but you have something else to provide them, well, then that means that you can use ad spend, right? You can break even on ad spend, which means that you can acquire more potential customers and get more of the people through the pipeline, through the value ladder, that actually increases your profit at the back end, right? So that's basically like the key misconceptions around these 3 different concepts. Now, if we look into like some insights for each one, I've just written down some key points here, right? For funnels, it's all about segmenting your audience, right? You need to tailor your funnel or customize them for like different personality types, right? Different types of segments, right? And you can use all types of psychological profiling, but right, some people respond better to an offer where there's risk but a lot of reward, and other people want safety and security. So there's not a one size fits all, right, in terms of what they're willing to risk or what they're willing to invest. So that also links into the types of offers you have. Now, you need to optimize for each stage and focus on conversion rates at all of your levels, right? Doesn't matter if it's a funnel, a pipeline, or a value ladder. Clear CTAs that you guide them, right? Don't confuse them with your CTAs. And that's another thing. If you're accurately aware of these different stages in your value ladder, in your pipeline, in your funnel, right, that means that you can engineer CTAs that convert the best and push them to that next stage, right, through that whole process, right? Clear CTAs with less friction, right? So they can take that step, right? Another thing you need in your funnel, right, because it's your mass of customers, right? Leverage automations, right? So you can nurture leads efficiently, right? Use things like email sequences and chatbots and different types of communication processes, basically, to get your offers in front of people repeatedly. And so you hit them at that time where they need your service and they will convert, right? And that you actually interact with them. That's not a one-way conversation, that you are engaged with them. So you build like the perfect customer that trusts you and believe in you and believe in what it is you can provide, right? And a lot of that can be accomplished not necessarily through personal interaction, but through automations, right? Content is another thing, right? Content is so very important because it builds credibility and it builds connection, right? You've probably done it just like me, right? Your favorite whatever marketer or lead generation specialist or whatever problem it was you were trying to solve, whatever stage you were at in your business journey, right? We all know how it is to work like 10, 12 hours a day to get shit to work, right? And so what you do in the evening is you sit down with your TV dinner and you watch a course or a piece of content, right? And you form an actual connection with people. So it's so incredibly valuable to have the right type of content, or they read about you or watch your short form content, right? And so also track the drop off points where people leave, right? So it's not only about conversion rate at the key points where they move through a stage. It's also about drop off points, right? And here's a key metric or key thing to track and be very much aware of. If you have 2 conversion points, right? You get them on a lead with a lead magnet and they convert into a buyer, right? Do they drop off before they opt in for your list or right after? Before means that they weren't clear onto why they should get your free shit. That's valuable, right? They didn't believe in you. If it's right after, it means there wasn't an activation point. If it's in the middle, it means you haven't communicated and nurtured with them sufficiently, or they haven't gotten the results that you promised. And then at the next stage, when they convert into a buyer, right, Right before, again, did they believe in your offer? Did you demonstrate enough value? Was it proven to them? And right after, was there an activation point where they got a result? Did they feel that they were understood and you provided the solution that they need? And throughout all of these different stages where they convert, it's usually right. Well, it has to be one of them, right? It's right before, right after, or in the middle to the next point, right? Usually, but measure them accurately so you can plug the leaks, plug the holes, right? Track those drop off points, track that churn rate, and do what it is that you need, right? So, because basically, if you know where your drop off points or where your churn rate occurs, right, then that means that you know where it is that you need to engage with them and provide value to keep them in the process, right? Either through a pipeline, sending up a value ladder, or just getting them on a list, right? And again, it's about communication and providing value, right? Now, let's look into pipelines, right? Some key insights for pipelines is you need to define the stages in your pipeline clearly, right? There can't be like a doubt as to what the stages are in your pipeline, right? So is it like reaching out to people, booking a call with them, getting them on the call, and then converting them into a customer or giving them leads or whatever it is? You need to clearly define the stages, right? Just in the funnel, just as you did in the funnel, you need to clearly define the stages in your pipeline also. You need to monitor velocity, right? Which means how quickly does a deal progress through your pipeline? What is your sales cycle? When you break even, when do a lot of profit occurs, right? Because there's also profit points where people typically buy the most, right? So timing is also an aspect that you need to track and measure, right? Where do you qualify leads, right? So you can prioritize high potential opportunities, right? If you basically qualify them at the beginning of your pipeline, when you get them on the list, right, it means that you can tailor-make your communication to different types of leads, because not all leads or not all potential buyers are the same, right? There might be some where you immediately qualify them and say, listen, they need a different customer journey, they need a different type of pipeline. You will have multiple pipelines, basically. You will have like a universal one that also acts as a funnel and branches out into like, are they the most likely to ascend up my value ladder? Are they low ticket? Are they high ticket? What is it, right? What type of communication and interaction do they need? And how much are you willing to sacrifice or provide value in advance? Or how many resources are you willing to allocate to the different types of customers? And if you don't measure it, if you don't track it, basically, not only the cost to acquire a customer or the cost to acquire a lead, but the cost to acquire what type of customer, right? So segmentation, um, and qualifying people, right? And then that means you need to have like CRM tools, right? So you can track and manage opportunities, at what stage they're at. And you need to use data to forecast, basically be able to based on prior evidence, to be able to accurately forecast how a lead progresses through those stages. Does he close? How do that segment of leads or potential buyers ascend up your value ladder, right? Now, in terms of value ladders, you need a value ladder. You need to start with value, right? So your initial offer, right, should basically solve a genuine problem that's a major roadblock for them. So if you can free up whatever path they're on to whatever outcome it is, that one major problem, and give them momentum, then they will send up your value ladder. So sometimes you need to provide the most value with the initial problem you solve them. Because if you do it in that order, they will get momentum, and then the price doesn't really matter. They don't measure the price against necessarily the value they get, right? They may measure price up against, or the service they get. They measure the price up against, did you deliver? Did they get the results previously, right? And do they think that you have the possibility to ascend them further up that journey to maintain their momentum, right? And so momentum becomes a value predictor for people in and by themselves, right? Do they believe that you can take them to the next step? Do they believe that you can take them all the way to whatever outcome it is they want to get to, right? So there also needs to be a logical progression through your value ladder, right? Where you solve those problems for them in a logical, progressive manner, right? Upsell them strategically, right? Make sure that your high ticket offers is very valuable and relevant for them. Focus on retention, right? Ongoing communication, so you have retention of your customers, right? Because the cost to acquire a customer, right, to acquire a new customer is in general what drags down your profit. So simply getting people to buy more from you repeatedly or sending up your value ladder can be done at a lower cost because you don't have to acquire a new customer, right? And measure their lifetime value, right? Track how efficiently customers move up your value ladder. Now, here's a key point. There's been a lot of talk about cost to acquire a customer and lifetime value. Now, that's a key metric that you need to focus on. But here's the point. It's not necessarily about getting the CAC, getting the cost to acquire a customer as low as possible while maximizing lifetime value. Because basically, to maximize lifetime value, sometimes you need to spend more to get the right type of customer, right? That's what I mean with segmentation also. So there will be different types of CAC for different types of customers, right? And so and there will be different types of lifetime value for different types of customers. And so when you get granular with your CAC to LTV to ROI, right? You need to put the ROI in there, right? It's not only about the total cost of acquiring a customer. It's not only the total amount of lifetime value. It's also about return on investment, which basically means the price you pay for a customer that gives you whatever value at the end. Now, here's the thing. When you focus on ROI, as long as it's net positive, right? Get as many customers in the door and then optimize later, right? For higher margins, right? There's different strategic ways of doing this. Go watch Alex Hormozi. He's huge on this. There's a lot of other people, but he clearly comes to mind. Clearly comes to mind. And so these three things work together synergistically, right? So your funnel feeds your pipeline, right? So if you have a well-optimized funnel, it will generate qualified leads for the pipeline, right? Now the pipeline closes the deal, right? The opportunities in the pipeline are then nurtured, right? And converted into paying customers, right? You close them, right? And then basically your value ladder maximizes ROI, right? So once you have acquired that customer, the value ladder increases the revenue you get and the lifetime value, right? So there's feedback loops to all of these things, right? So insights from the value ladder, right, inform better targeting in your funnel and in your pipeline, right? So you can reverse engineer. And that's why at some point you want to have a sit down and you want to accurately review and assess your customers and say, what are my best customers? What exactly do they look like? Those who has the best activation points, those I provide the most value to, those who buy the most, and focus on them. I'm not saying that you should screen off everything else, right? Because it's added value as long as there's an actual ROI. And also, segmentation is key, but it's an art and a science, right? Because you can't put people in a category and say they will buy this. It's like large numbers. You can accurately assess people, but sometimes some of the like percentage of the customers will actually start in one segment where you have an expectation towards a certain lifetime value, and then they will move down to a different segment and get so there's like an overlap through different customer segmentations, right? So there's feedback loops, and there's reverse engineering throughout all of this. And targeting, right? The right people are so incredibly valuable, and so you also need a certain amount of numbers to accurately assess how your optimal customer looks like, right? And so if you're consistent with these three things, your value ladder, your pipeline, and your funnel, your pipeline, and your value ladder, means that you have the data, so you can basically reverse engineer the best targeted customers. Who do you need to go after? Where do you need to allocate resources? And it also means that you can clearly identify the points where you need to optimize for conversion and the points where you need to optimize to remove drop-off points, right? And then it becomes a smooth process, right? And so in your funnel, you basically want to diagnose the entry points and the conversion rate of each stage, right? You want to be very aware at where there's high drop-off points and fix that. The weakest stages in your funnel, right? And that's for a funnel, it's usually awareness and interest and desire until they take that action, right? So you need to optimize, right? Improve your targeting, improve your messaging, your communication, your positioning in the marketplace, your brand, right? Because brand is basically like attitude. It's a preconception or pre-notion of things, right? So that's what your brand do. It means that your customer immediately associates you with a certain type of value, and it removes the decision-making process because it's a priori decision-making. It's basically an attitude they have towards things. And we all know people with a shitty attitude is bad. And people that are optimists and have a very positive attitude, they run smooth through things, right? Even though there's obstacles and objections and resistance in life, optimism is the right attitude. And at the same way, you can say that your brand is that optimism, that belief in you. That's it's basically faith in who you are and what you represent and what you can do to people, right? It's an attitude that you embed in them, right? And so to optimize your funnel, right? Improve your targeting and your messaging, and use split testing for ads and for landing pages and for all the different steps where you communicate and interact with people, and simplify your CTAs to reduce friction, right? And give them one choice, like basically things that they want to move through, decisions that they want to do, and pre-frame that decision-making process. And that's why psychology and copywriting, persuasion, basically communication is a key at all of these stages, right? Because that's all it is. A sales process is a list of people that you communicate with in a certain way, so they take an action that you want them to do throughout all these stages, right? So if you want them to take an action, make it very clear what it is you want them to do, make it very clear what the outcome will be, so you remove the friction in the decision-making process. Not so they go from not will this work for me, but how will it work for me? How well will it work for me? How long will it take? And then clarify those things, because then they will basically take that action that you want them to take. And in terms of your pipeline, I have it here that you need to review your pipeline velocity, right? And your stage-specific conversion rate, so you know the time estimation of your sales cycle, and identify like the deals that are stuck at specific stages, right? The opportunities that doesn't progress. And so in a funnel, it's usually people drop off, and in a pipeline, it's usually people getting stuck and then they drop off. So where are the sticking points in your pipeline? Identify those and then smooth out that process, right? Same principle, a little bit different because it's basically inertia. That's the problem here. And then you need to give it momentum and remove friction. right? And you optimize that by training your sales team to address the common objections. They need to be very clear on them. You automate your follow-up for faster response time. Very important, we all know that. And you implement a CRM system for visibility and tracking. So you can actually pinpoint those stages where you need to add momentum and remove friction and resistance to get it flowing through, right? In terms of your value ladders, it's a lot about diagnosing and evaluating progression rates between levels, right? Again, just like your sales cycle has a time frame, then your value ladder also has a time frame. And so if you want to increase revenue from your value ladder, from your pre-existing customer, making them ascend up your value ladder, then how can you speed up the process to which you basically solve the problem for them so that they're ready for the next stage, right? And how can you teach, train, educate, and nurture them so they know that they need this and it's valuable for them to actually get to the next stage, right? And then there's a timing aspect, because you don't want to push them to ascension up your value ladder too fast, right? So it needs to be at the exact right time that you push forward, right? But in general, the more offers and the more communication you have with your list, with your buyers, the more they convert, right? And then you need to identify gaps in offers, right? Or low conversion to high ticket offers, right? So basically, it's the communication process, right? Where do you have a gap? Where is there a lack of clarity or information for your buyer, so they feel that confidence that they need to have to ascend up the value ladder? And it doesn't only need to be you solving a problem for them. It's not only what they buy and the problem you solve for them, but how connected they feel to you, right? So we know connection is a key element in these touch points. Do you have the know, like, and trust factor, right? So you optimize your value ladder by enhancing the perceived value of each level, and you restate and reinforce it back to them. So you want to have positive reinforcement throughout your value ladder, right? You want to make to reassure them that it was a smart decision to buy from you, right? That they did the right thing. And you need to acknowledge the results that they have gotten, because people want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to felt understood, right? They want to have something where they progress towards a goal, where they know that they deliver value to other people and to themselves. They want to have growth, basically, right? And you need to acknowledge that growth for them, help them to acknowledge that growth, right? By reiterating and restating and reaffirming to them positive reinforcement, right? So they maintain that momentum and get them through those sticking points, the resistance that there will be, right? And email campaigns, right, is basically the king of this. And other types of communication, obviously. But if in doubt, start with your email campaign, right? If you have a list and you have a business and you're not nurturing that list, that is like the flaw number one that you do not want to make, man. Get your email shit in order, right? And then have different types of loyalty programs or different types of incentives so people stay with you, right? And that's all about the culture you have in your brand and in your business, and how people relate to you, not only from the perspective of the results you deliver, but also from a perspective of the connection that they have to you and the affinity and connection they have to your values, right? And so what I look into is basically, when I look into all of these different things, when I engage with a business, I look at the funnel, I look at the pipeline, right? And I look at the value ladder, I look at the different stages, right? The different possible drop-off points, the churn rate, the conversion rate. I look at the communication that is throughout this process, how they communicate with people. I look at the list building efforts, how they segment everything else. So it's very, very much like diagnosing these different things, right? And then fixing. the little things, fixing the lead flow first, then fixing the drop off points, and then the conversion rate. And a lot of times, like if you want to get an immediate revenue, new level of revenue, it's basically just looking into all of these things, picking the low hanging fruits, right? Because you have that top level view as a consultant, right? And then optimize everything to a new level of revenue. And um, you basically pick the low hanging fruit. You do what has historically worked in the past, you do more of it, you automate it, right? You fix the drop off points where your leads doesn't convert, right? You increase the conversion rate, and you in the beginning you fill in more lead flow, right? And that amount to revenue in the other end. That's basically how you do it. And then at some level, you pick the easiest, most low hanging fruit in terms of lead generation. Um, and then at some point, as you basically move through your TAM, you can then ascend into adjacent markets, right, to further. And then at some stage, you can introduce a new product or new type of service, but centered around the same concept, right? So you can expand. But that's generally when you are at a very high level of income, right? And you optimize for reducing complexity, reducing friction on your own part, so you can easily fulfill. You put automations in place, right? That can do as much for you, so you can allocate your time, energy, and effort towards what really matters. You remove constraints, and then you start to flow smoothly, right? So you need to conduct interviews, surveys. You need to audit the data, look at the math. Really, it's might be a little bit boring. For me, it's very exciting to diagnose these things and then find those little points where I just know, okay, if we do this, right, it's money, right? You also need to have the ability to look. So if I integrate this component, like this source of leads, or if I make like this type of lead campaign, or build out their communication with the list, then it decreases revenue, right? These little components, these little optimizations, and then accurately being able to assess, like give an estimation as to how it will increase revenue. And the more revenue you get out in the end of this, the more you can invest into optimizing further and increasing the customer journey and delivering more value. And the value you can deliver to your customer is dependent on the money and the revenue you have in the other end. And the money and the revenue that then drives the value you can deliver to your customer, that consolidates your brand and your positioning in the marketplace, right? As those who have the best service, right? And that's lifetime value, lifetime connection with your customer, right? That's brand. And so you need an integration plan, right? You need to align your funnel strategies to feed qualified leads into your pipeline, into this nurturing sales process where they eventually convert. You need to design a cohesive value ladder, right, that maximizes return on your acquired customer, right? Um, and you need to accurately be able to assess what types of customer you're willing to have a higher CAC, right? A higher cost to acquire a customer. What's the top line? At what point are you break even, and then can you make money on the back end? So it's an evaluation process where you can crunch the numbers, right? In terms of execution, it's very important that you build and optimize each system in parallel, right? Meaning that if you focus on like having the best lead generation, right, or the best funnel, or the best pipeline, or the best sales process, or the best whatever offer or product or service you have, like being the best at everything is extremely hard. Oh fuck, my camera just died on me. But like, let me just fix this shit, man. Don't worry, I'm not gonna expose people here. You can be, but like, I want to make a video on this. I think it's somewhat valuable. Okay, it's charging. I'm gonna have to cut it. Oh, there we go. And we're charging again. Uh, recording again. So fuck, where was I? Let me see. Yeah. So you need to accurately assess and diagnose all these things. You need to build and optimize these systems in parallel. You need to provide training for your teams. You need to have the right tools, the processes, the techniques. You want to have these feedback loops. You need to monitor everything, track everything, be very aware of your KPIs. And then when you scale, it's basically, yeah, that was the key point, is that it's much easier to get better. Like just do a pretty good job, like 80 to 90% job on all of these stages than like 100% job at one of them. So get to that stage of 80 to 90% throughout, and then you can go for like that one major thing. But like in general, it's much better to just be proficient at all levels, right? That's going to give you money in the end. So that's basically it, man. I can see I'm late for a flight here, so because I kept rambling on and my camera turned off. But thank you for watching in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm not recording you. Just fucking around here. Sorry, no, I can't do a Q&A session. It got too late, man. But I hope you got a lot of value off of this. Thank you for showing up. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah. And so for those of you who know me, if you want to know more about this, just shoot me an email, man. We can hop on a call. We can discuss this. As always, I am open for business. This is Casper LSK. I hope you enjoyed this first live session. See you later.